Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, President Rodrigo Duterte wants PhilHealth officials to resign.
I'm looking into any culpability of an employee of government joining or in cahoots or in conspiracy.
Following the revelation of ghost dialysis treatments.
Lahat po ng bayad ng PhilHealth ay diretso po sa account ng WellMed at hindi po dumadaan sa mga empleyado.
Also, a suggestion to suspend the implementation of the Universal Healthcare Program.
When the problem is irregularities, then you solve the irregularities. You don't stop the operation.
Until trustworthy leaders take the helm of PhilHealth. Lawyer Roque and health advocate and former PhilHealth director Anthony Leachon join us live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. President Rodrigo Duterte asks top PhilHealth officials to tender their courtesy resignations and is now looking for a new head to lead the government's health insurance corporation. The decision comes after allegations of fraudulent claims amounting to billions of pesos, including so-called ghost or fake dialysis treatments for non-existent kidney patients. So, what kind of reforms are needed to revamp PhilHealth? How will these impact the implementation of the Universal Healthcare Law? Let's go straight to the source of the story. Health reform advocate and former PhilHealth director Anthony Leachon. Dr. Leachon, good to see you. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, Pinky, and happy birthday.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so the president is asking already ask for the courtesy resignation of the president, who's the acting president, no?
Dr.
Roy Ferrer, and members of the board. First of all, because you were part of PhilHealth, sir, are they to blame for all these fraudulent claims, alleged fraudulent claims?
Well, it's a huge problem because for the public to know, when a new president comes in, a new set of board will usually take over. But the middle management has been there already for 20 or 30 years. So there's a problem here of the learning curve and everything. But I must tell you that the board members whom I worked with for so many years are men and women of integrity.
So am I getting this clear? Once a new president is installed, the members of the board are also newly installed. Ganun
Yes,
ba yun?
yes. In my case, I work for 3 secretaries of health, Secretary Garin, Ubial, and Secretary Duque. It just so happened that I was independent director of the monetary board, so the president should actually defer to the choice of the monetary board. Right. Now, the problem here is that there were 3 leadership changes also from Dr. Hildineros, Dr. Celestina de la Serna, and Dr. Roy Ferrer.
So from those 3, Dr. Leachon, nagpalit din yung board of directors dun sa tatlo?
May palitan din.
May movement?
May mga movements.
Okay, but not
Isa-isa o
necessarily pag natanggal yung director, lahat ng board of directors natatanggal.
Hindi, may isa o dalawa.
I see.
Ganun ang istorya. So, you have here yung permanency of the job into the next cycle. Yun ang problem here.
Let me ask you point blank. Sino ho ba ang may responsibilidad dito? More so, would it be the president, just so we understand, the board of directors, or who you call the middle, how do you call the middle managers, who have been there, or middle officials who have been there for 20 years?
Well, I actually respect the decision of the president, President Duterte, na it's a command responsibility and it's accountability. So the buck stops at the highest level of leadership. So in that case, yun ang decision ng president, and I believe so. Now, the middle management kasi will only follow what the executive committee or the higher level of officials will actually impose, diba? So there's a problem here of execution. Now, if you have internal squabble, that's the problem in execution because it actually destroys the morale of the entire organization.
Was there internal squabble when you were around?
Yes, no board meetings would pass na hindi dinidiscuss ang cases against some regional vice presidents.
Yes.
Yeah. So talagang totoo yun. What Dr. Ferrer and Secretary Duque were telling the public, totoo yun. And there
So
were...
meron talagang squabble among regional vice presidents of Visayas and Mindanao. Totoo po yun?
Totoo po yun. Was mentioned by the President and Senator Bongo and even Secretary Panelo. Totoo
Yeah.
po yun.
And so, bakit po nagkakaroon ng squabble among them? Bakit ho ba?
Well, ang unang problem, ang nakikita ko is that they belong to a different culture and set of attitudes and behaviors. And then suddenly, a new set, well-meaning leaders are trying to do some reforms. So therefore, the greatest problem in reform is, of course, acceptability or acceptance of the change. And change is not easy in a huge organization
Okay.
like the PhilHealth.
Okay.
So basically, I would welcome the decision with the President so that the President has a free hand to study and review the process.
Roy Ferrer is saying there's a mafia within the PhilHealth. Do you know of this as well?
I don't know mafia, but I have a separate mantra. A crime of this magnitude is always a group crime. So therefore, there is involvement of the hospitals, the healthcare providers, sometimes the patients, sometimes the employers, sometimes the PhilHealth officials. And we have working there for 3.5 years as chair of the Risk Management Committee, a member of the audit and the Committee on Appealed Cases, nakikita namin yan eh. So, ang importante dyan, I think the ghost dialysis story is the last straw that broke the camel's back. A seemingly minor problem na pumutok siya, pero the reforms ginagawa na. Particularly, that led actually to the Universal Healthcare Law. Most of the provisions of the Universal Healthcare Law came from the PhilHealth resolutions. For example, the selection of the PhilHealth Board is in Section 13. And the selection will actually be effective within 30 days upon the signing of the President on February 20. So therefore, may proseso na yun. They have to look into the criteria and guidelines. And number two, wala kasing masyadong punitive measures dati. Ang nakalagay lang sa PhilHealth Charter, suspension lang ng hospital for a few months, and then a measly 50,000 pesos fine for the healthcare. So, merong recidivism na nangyayari, paulit-ulit.
Ibig sabihin, there's a 50 peso fine. For example,
50,000 pesos fine.
50,000 peso fine for a center or a hospital who is found guilty of fraudulent claims?
Yes, ganun ang charter eh. So what we did in the board and in the committee where I sat before, tinaasan namin per case, 200,000 pesos per case. And then from 6 months to 6 years imprisonment. Of course, based on the revised penal code, and that would involve everybody.
Hospital, center, PhilHealth employee if found liable.
Even patient who will be in cahoots.
Okay, help us understand the situation now that you have employees of a wellness center, according to, who have affidavits already, Attorney Harry Roque, ang kanilang lawyer, na sinasabi nga na dalawa lang daw ang modus. Nagkakaroon ng dialysis, ang patay na pasyente o yung pasyente na buhay, instead of 2, let's say, a week, nagiging 3 a week or more. So yun ang kinaklaim ngayon, allegedly, by this wellness center. How does something like that happen? Madali ho ba yun?
Madali yun kung marunong ka mandaya eh. Ang problema lang na nakikita kong loophole, there must be a certificate na alive ka. Like for example, sa GSS, may medical certificate na binibigay mo so that you can claim
GSS?
GSIS.
GSIS, okay.
So yesterday, I signed a medical certificate and I asked the patient, saan mo gagamitin? This is just to tell the company na buhay ako so that they can give me the 15,000 pesos for the medicine allowance.
Got it.
So dapat may ganon.
Yeah.
And then the hospital and the doctor should actually notify PhilHealth kung patay na siya. So yun ang isa sa reform natin. Even in Google.
But that's what they're doing. Hindi ho ba yung sinabi ng mga empleyado through Attorney Harry Roque was that they were signing on behalf of dead patients. So may signature. Meron silang isinasubmit na signature.
Correct. Ang problema lang on the other end, whether they accept that.
Yeah.
Kaya nga sabi ko nga sa'yo, it's something, it's a group crime.
Yeah, but how do you solve a problem such as, let's say, PhilHealth making sure or affirming or confirming that indeed that patient is still alive na meron ngang signature.
Merong field lawyers sila and doctors
I see.
They can go to the centers And then may red flags din For example, dialysis, the PhilHealth has been paying 11 billion a year. So red flag siya. Ang code nga niyan na dapat i-focus lang is P, pneumonia, upcasing of cases from simple cough to pneumonia. And then H, hemodialysis. I, infections. And C, cataracts and cesarean section. Doon lang. So the focus actually should be on PHIC
Why,
cases.
Dr. Leachon? Kasi yun bang mostly nagagamit at na-abuse?
Because of the high case rates na binabayad.
I see.
Let's say for severe pneumonia, 30,000 pesos. For dialysis, you have 90 sessions, now expanded to 120 sessions.
Under the universal health care.
Cataracts is 16,000
Yeah.
cases for a 15-minute procedure. And then cesarean, let's say 20,000 for cesarean. For normal delivery, 6,000 lang.
Okay. So what's the solution? Right now, what's the short-term solution to a situation like this?
Well, there are three things that, of course, people, that's leadership change, and I respect the decision of the president, though I know the integrity of the board. Number two is the implementation of universal healthcare law, because it's already there. Sorry if I won't agree with the suspension, kasi this will deprive naman millions, 100 million Filipinos, who are actually benefiting from universal healthcare law. At saka napirma na ng presidente. And the last one, the funding. Kapapasa nga lang last week ng syntax funds. So there's no problem right now with the funds. So the problem is on the people or the leadership. I-correct yun. And it's already in the UHC law that within 30 days upon the signing, there should be a transition right now to the new UHC. So they're gonna trim it down from 18 board members to 13 board members.
1-3.
1-3 with competencies in public health, finance management, health economics, with 7 years experience in those fields. So may guidelines na.
May classifications na kung ano talaga ang qualifications ng board members.
Yes, parang sa human resources when you apply, let's say, in a corporate situation.
In fact, they were saying that, I know Senator JV was saying before, and even Senator Angara was saying that kailangan daw actually maglagay na ng parang a manager of some sort to take care also of the funds of PhilHealth.
I agree with the Senator JV and the President and many senators. But it's already in the Universal
Ando na.
Healthcare Law, Section 13.
Okay. So dapat sundin yun.
Dapat sundin yun. Actually, nag-take effect na siya March 20. Dapat ngayon, may transition na dun sa GCG, which is the commission responsible for the selection of the new board.
So probably at another time, let's talk about the Universal Healthcare Law and siguro yung qualifications needed for the board, and who will actually be really taking over. We'd like to thank Dr. Anthony Leachon for joining us this morning. Sir, maraming salamat po sa inyo. We hope to guest you again. Thank you. We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Joining us now in the studio, Attorney Harry Roque. Good to see you again, Attorney. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you,
Okay,
and it's a pleasure.
Sorry, we talked about this a couple of days ago nung pumutok na itong balita. It
Yes.
started, of course, with the Inquirer, and we spoke to Attorney Harry Roque. So, you know, I guess a lot of people already know the issue. I just wanted to ask you, sir, maliban dun sa sinabi niyo na dalawa yung modus, na supposed to be, nagkakaroon ng dialysis sa mga patay na pasyente o dinadagdagan ng dialysis ng mga buhay na pasyente. What else? Is there any other modus that these two witnesses were telling you?
Well, of course, they know only about what was happening in WellMed itself because they were employees, no? But no less than Secretary Roque has said that last year alone, there were 400,000 cases of pneumonia, and yet the claims paid by PhilHealth amounted to 751,000. No? So you don't know where the difference came from. And this is an anomaly that has been uncovered by the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, 5 years ago. Now, at the same time that we were hearing universal healthcare in Congress, I also filed a resolution to investigate PhilHealth, and we did conduct an investigation. And one of the new things we uncovered was that the weakest link was the investigation process within PhilHealth itself. When OIC President Ferrer says that 28 administrative cases have been filed, he doesn't tell us that these cases were filed within their own internal procedure, which means wala pa yun, because you need to prove all the allegations before they can even revoke the accreditation. And how long is the process? Well, the whistleblowers went to PhilHealth in July of last year. Until June of this year, I have
That's right.
proof that they have continued to receive payments from PhilHealth. And in fact, until today, their accreditation has not been revoked. Now, what is funny is it's supposed to be an administrative procedure. There's supposed to be a preference for administrative exhaustion of administrative remedies because they're faster. So why does it take them 1 year?
Why does it take them 1 year?
Exactly, to revoke accreditation of a clinic that is giving benefits to dead people.
Pero paano yun, Attorney Harry? Kasi you also have to kind of balance that out, hindi ho ba? Because meron, allegedly, kung merong mga patay or dinadagdagan, baka, sir, meron naman talagang totoo na hindi naman pinapad or dinadaya ng mga nagdadialysis. I mean, how do you actually strike a balance in that wellness center when in fact, meron pang ibang tao na posibleng hindi nandaraya?
Well, alam mo, itong nothing personal on WellMed. In fact, I don't know them from
Yeah.
ADAM. But what is important is to prove that despite the fact na lumang balita na itong mga anomalies, they persist. And that despite the fact that there's new administration already in place in PhilHealth, si OIC Ferrer nga, wala pa ring reforms na ginagawa. So, imagine, July, nagpunta na yung mama, dala-dala na yung mga pangalan ng patay na nagkaroon ng dialysis benefits.
You're talking about Mr.
Edwin
na
Zel
pumunta na
Santos.
sa PhilHealth in July last year.
In July of last
so it's
year.
been a year since.
So ako, ano ba naman yung give them 3 days to respond? And after 3 days, decide whether or not their accreditation will be revoked. Alam mo, powerful kasi accreditation. Without PhilHealth accreditation, the patients cannot avail of 90 free
Absolutely,
dialysis.
yeah.
And the clinic will not be able to collect anything from government. So pag tinanggal mo yung accreditation, sino pupunta sa kanila? Only
Wala.
the wealthy, di ba? So,
Yung
mawawala.
makakabayad.
Correct, no? So, ilan ba naman yun?
But
Konti
3
lang yan.
days, would that be enough, Attorney Harry?
Alam mo kasi, in administrative law, all you need is to give them yung cardinal principles of due process, and 3 days is enough. Kasi ang allegation is, eto, binigyan mo ng dialysis ang patay. What would you need to verify that? Sasabihin nila, hindi, buhay. O, eto, death certificate. O, ano ba naman ang hirap no, na on that basis, mag-decide ka na revoke na accreditation?
Especially if pumunta na sa PhilHealth.
Oo,
Kasi
eh.
yun yung hindi naman balita lang, dumiretso talaga
Dumiretso.
sa opisina.
At nangangalampag pa. So, hindi ko maintindihan, habang nangangalampag, lalong walang nangyayari.
But of course, the other side is their lawyer is saying that the client vehemently denies this, and in fact, he's saying that the 2 witnesses are the one in cahoots, sir, at silang nagpaumpisa nitong o nagpropagate nitong fraudulent claims,
That's
sir.
difficult to believe. Why? Because all the payments were made to WellMed, not to the employees. In fact, it's not even paid in the form of a check. It's directly deposited into the account of WellMed. So how will they benefit? No?
Wala ba silang connection or way in terms of withdrawing the money from the account of WellMed, sir? Yung dalawa?
Well, I'm
Wala.
not saying that all Chinese businessmen do it, no? But in Chinese businesses, talagang sila lang ang pumipirma ng cheque. And I can assure you that my 2 clients did not have any signing authority.
Wala, for sure.
Wala po.
You're certain about that.
Apo.
What was really the motive of them having to expose this,
You know,
even
they
in
have-
July last
They
year,
was
sir?
beautiful, the cutest 6-month-old baby. They ended up marrying each other, si Edwin and si Lizelle. No? And of course, they want to start from scratch. And I think as a parent, no, you want to be known by your children as someone who contributed something to society. I think that's a motivation.
Really?
And that's why one of the saddest things now is I'm calling again on Prosecutor Ted Villanueva. Pakibilis-bilisan lang po yung admission nila sa WPP dahil natutulog po sila ngayon sa NBI away from their 6-month-old baby.
Okay, yeah, that would be difficult if indeed they are telling the truth at lumabas sila, tapos ngayon nahiwalay pa sila sa kanilang
Oo,
anak,
hindi.
di ba?
Ang punto naman kasi, talagang kung hindi naman sila talagang lumantad, we would not have known. You know, I mean, PhilHealth they have admitted that they don't have any system to check whether or not the patients are alive. They don't even implement a physical, check if you in fact got the benefit for which PhilHealth paid a health provider, no? So talagang there's just no way.
Yeah, I think that really needs to be addressed, Attorney Harry, because we're not just talking about dialysis, as Dr.
Yes.
Leachon was saying. Madami ho yan.
Pneumonia,
Cesarean, pneumonia,
cataract.
cataract.
Oo.
And those reports have been said and published in the past. Na-expose na po yung mga reports na yan in the past. So,
Kaya nga ang question ko kay OIC Ferrer, stop saying that you're dealing with it because actually they persist. And one of the things that we discovered in Congress nga is it's the same old people who are even approaching health providers na meron ng stop payment orders and asking them for 25% of the amount involved so that they can be paid, no? So yun yung lumabas sa congressional investigation, no? And it's a matter of congressional record.
dapat siguro mag-oversight both houses of Congress regarding this?
Well, ako naman kasi na lahat na investigasyon na gawa namin. Pero as author of the bill, or as author of the law of the universal healthcare, yan naman ang primary motivation ko in calling attention of the people. I'm very happy that people are concerned. Because our intention when we filed that bill and it became law, was to benefit the Filipino people. Dapat wala nang Pilipinong namamatay dahil lamang sa kahirapan. Pero can you imagine, on the first year of implementation, until now, we don't know where to source the 257 billion to be spent on universal healthcare. Can you imagine if it is true, and this is based naman on COA reports, that 154 billion have been lost for a period of 6 years, mabilis mauubos yung 257 billion, no? Buti sana kung pupunta sa libreng pag-abot. Kaso, pupunta naman sa mga patay na nagpapadialysis, di walang mangyari.
We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Attorney Harry Roque. Sir, the President already asked for the courtesy resignation of the President and members of the board. Is that enough?
Well, that's a very good beginning, and we'd like to thank the President for his timely and fast action. No? In the first place, the whistleblowers would not have had the confidence. They would not have agreed to go out public, no, and reveal their identities, if not because of their trust in the President. No? Sinabi ko talaga, kilala ko yung Presidente, naglingkod naman ako sa kanya, hindi yan magtotolerate ng corruption. Kasi initially, gusto nila anonymous pa. Sabi ko, problema dyan sa anonymous,
mahirap.
Until you actually show your face na wala kang tinatago, it's difficult to believe. No? And of course, how do you argue against the denials expected to be made by PhilHealth officials? No? So, naniniwala po kami na talagang seryoso ang Presidente dito sa kanyang kampanya laban sa korupsyon at nakita naman natin, mabilis ang aksyon.
So what
Pero
should
hindi
be
pa po
next?
What should be next is, number one, no? Full implementation of the law which we push. No? Kasi may mga minimum qualifications siya. The President of PhilHealth, for
You're
instance.
talking about the
no?
UHC?
Yeah, the UHC. It's already there. Kasi initially, I wanted to abolish PhilHealth and to create another agency because in this manner, we can rid the agency of all scalawags. I was shocked that on the day itself that I was scheduled to defend the bill in the plenary, they changed it. I don't even know how they did it because there was a different version approved in the committee level. It was my version calling for a new corporation, no? But with the substantially the same functions. But you see, I felt I was justified in creating a new agency, not only because of the corruption and the need to rid of the agency of mafia, but also because universal healthcare is completely different from medical insurance. The benefits that you derive from medical insurance is dependent on actuarial science. Whereas we know that if you want to provide for the basics at least of health needs, you need to invest public funds.
Okay.
So I felt justified in doing away with PhilHealth on those two counts. And I was shocked. For the first time, I found out that they changed the bill approved at the committee level in plenary. And I was the only one defending the bill because the chair of the committee then was abroad. I was screaming my head off in the committee behind me.
How is that possible? How can that be
I
possible?
don't
What
know.
was passed in the
You know,
committee was very different from what was discussed at plenary?
Correct. It was a completely different version that they were asking me to defend. And that's why I was taken aback and I was really angered. But of course, I had to continue because I knew that in principle, we had to agree universal healthcare. And I was confident that it can be fixed in the Senate. Little did I know that the Senate will never agree because the counterpart bill in the Senate was filed by Senator Ralph Recto, and Senator Recto was the author of the PhilHealth law. So there was just no way he would agree to an abolition.
Because they don't want, because kanila yon. Parang ganun. No, so let's clarify. So what's the next step?
Well, the next step now is to implement the minimum qualifications of PhilHealth, to revamp the internal procedure of PhilHealth. I don't think it's acceptable that it takes them this long, no, just to revoke accreditation. Give them 3 days, no, because that's the essence of administrative procedures, just an opportunity to be heard. Pag malinaw naman ang ebidensya, you're just talking of revoking the accreditation, and without that accreditation...
Revoke or maybe suspend muna, attorney?
Well, whatever it is, no? But
Mahirap
I think,
naman yung revoke while pending
kasi,
investigation.
It's not a right, to have PhilHealth accreditation. It's a privilege, and that's why you have to earn it. So, gaya ng patakaran ng Presidente, just a whiff of corruption, dapat tanggal ka na. Ganun din dapat ang ginagawa ng PhilHealth.
Bakit para matakot din yung mga ospital at mga centers na,
Well,
you know,
yun nga
one mistake, pwedeng
That's
i-revoke
it.
ang kanilang
And,
lisensya.
can you imagine the amount of money that they will lose also, no, if they don't get PhilHealth funding? No? Lalo na ngayon sa universal healthcare, and that's my point. Pinasa natin itong batas nito para makinabang ang taong bayan, hindi para lalong tumaba yung mga baboy dyan sa PhilHealth.
So, okay, after that, sir, pero gusto mo pa rin ituloy ang universal health
We
care,
want,
is that?
of course, we
So,
pushed it.
yeah.
We are the author.
No,
Why
because
will we be against
there was a
it?
proposal to suspend it first.
I
Hindi ho
mentioned
ba?
it.
Exactly.
Because in the first place, it hasn't been implemented. Wala pang IRR. So we have not actually implemented it. So sa akin naman, ngayong nakita na natin ang scale and scope of the problem, siguro alam na natin yung danger kapag dinagdagan pa natin yung pondo na walang reforms. So sa akin, mas importante rin yung structural reforms, lalo na doon sa adjudicatory procedure nila. Mali yan kasi that ultimately, everything is handled by PhilHealth from the investigator, prosecutor, and judge. Kaya nagkakaroon ng kuntsabahan. Kasi sila-sila naman yan eh. Oh, have you heard of anyone who's been actually murdered in prison because of insurance fraud in PhilHealth? Wala. And yet, billion, if we're to believe the whistleblower from PhilHealth itself, no, 154 billion na nga ang nawala.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, OIC Ferrer says, oh, I dispute that, it's only 300 million. It's as if 300 million is a small amount, no?
Malaki din. Malaki, napakalaki din, of course. That was also my thought. 300 million is a lot. There's a question, sir, if you actually want to lead PhilHealth. Ganun mo ba?
No, I don't think I'm qualified. I don't have the management skills.
Sabi ng
Neither do I.
presidente, we
Yeah.
need a manager and we need parang... Hindi, another suggestion was to get experts on fraudulent claims.
Well, ang sa akin lang, get someone who will succeed in implementing universal health
You
care.
want Roy Ferrer out?
Well, I think, you know, even prior to this controversy, meron kasing tinatawag na governance committee. Ito yung body that supervises sa GOCCs. Nothing personal to Ferrer. But PhilHealth, under his leadership, got a grade of 46% from this governance committee.
Hindi, from a high of what?
From a high of 91%. So, what does that say about his leadership?
What does it say about his leadership,
Really
sir?
rotten, no? At 46%, no? Eh kaya naman ang sinasabi ko nga, valid namang issue itong linabas namin. And yet, look at his declarations. Gusto lang ni Harry Roque position ko. I mean, come on.
So
I was
ayaw mo,
already in the cabinet,
For the record,
no?
ayaw mo
For
yung
the record,
position.
I was already in the cabinet. Ba't ba ako bababa pa sa GOCC, no? I'm sorry to have said that, but I actually have to say it, no? I was avoiding to say that, pero naman.
Ayun, lumabas na, as usual. Very Harry Roque. Attorney, maraming salamat. We've run out of time. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again, sir.
Thank you.
We'll continue to monitor the developments of this story, of course. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.
Ang bilis naman.
Sa...